Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here, and back, of course, is Hannah Burr.
Hello.
How was your Iceland trip?
It was amazing. Loved the people. The scenery was great. The culture was great. Saw the northern lights every night. It was wonderful.
Yeah,
Absolutely wonderful.
nice, but probably cold, right?
Oh, it was cold. It was
Yeah,
cold. It was really cool actually. In the beginning when we were actually driving around Iceland, we experienced Iceland in spring, which is sunny, 30s and 40s, but that wind is what really that's what got you. I think I was wearing two pairs of pants and three jackets with a
okay,
turtleneck and a gaiter and a hat because that wind just killed you. And
yeah.
then for the rest of the trip, it was Iceland in winter and it snowed. So we got
Mm,
to experience both sides of Iceland, which was awesome.
very cool, very cool. Well, in your absence, Martin Donison, Cyber Ren over there, filled in,
Yes.
and we talked about the brand new trailer for Andor season 2, which I want to get your comments here in a second about that. But since you came back, there has been another video, what they call a special look, that just dropped that even dives a little bit more into the making of Andor and what we can expect from this season. So we'll talk a bit about that. Of course, first, thanks to our patrons, as always, for supporting the show. If you're interested in supporting the show, patreon.com/InsideTheForce. Go check that out. But, of course, all of our patrons, we can't do this without you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And, of course, some of the comments from last week's episode with Martin Donison on there.
Yeah.
Our buddy Thrawn says, nice surprise to have Martin on the show. Really enjoyed the Andor trailer. The music was a strange choice, I'll admit. It did make me laugh seeing all the critically acclaimed messages throughout, basically saying, please watch the show. It's amazing. That's an interesting way of looking at it, yes.
Mhm.
Smart move considering that the slightly low views season 1 had and the not good reception Acolyte had. Great to see most of those characters are returning. It looks like it's going to have a lot more action this season. Great to see Krennic involved, who in my opinion is an underrated Star Wars villain. Glad they also pretty much showed us shots and no dialogue because I want to go into this season with no clue what's going to happen. Like the block of 3 episodes per week, and each 3 covering a year of Andor's life, all leading up to Rogue One. I cannot wait for the 10-hour Mandalore discussions for those 4 weeks. Yeah, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how to feel about the news Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down. I know the Disney era of Star Wars has had its ups and downs, but you cannot question her resume since the 80s, so I think she would be missed being involved in Lucasfilm overall. I just hope they have a good replacement and take over before she goes. I have no idea who a good fit would be to oversee all of Star Wars / Lucasfilm. Great video, guys, and cannot wait for your Andor reviews. May the Force be with you. And then, of course, let's see, Kamar Jade says, on the Andor trailer, I agree with the general sentiment that the music was a bit off-putting to me. On a side note, though, my husband thought everything about it was perfect. But the scenes we got has me hyped. Overall, I felt it was probably a trailer designed more for the Super Bowl, where they're trying to interest a wider audience, especially because they were throwing all the acolytes in there. I think you're right that we'll get another trailer in a month's time, which may be a bit of a different tone. Andor is a darker, more serious series, and they might have wanted to get more reach with this kind of trailer. And then as for Kathleen Kennedy, I'm basically on the same page as Martin. I don't understand exactly how much creative control a producer really has, but that I would really want to see in anyone who takes that role is putting creatives in the right place. The controversy around her is dumb. There's been more successful things under her than not. I'd like to mention to the trolls that The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Andor, etc. all were under her watch. all under her and watch their head spins. On that note, though, I also heard the news wasn't quite accurate, and she isn't stepping down yet. So I guess we'll see. So good point. She's not stepping down right now, but what I think what's happening, and I think this has been somewhat confirmed by her. Actually, I think she's come out and said that they are working on an exit plan. So usually things like that take about a year. So you can definitely don't expect her to be gone this year. It'll probably be sometime next year where they properly vet who her replacement's going to be, how they really truly want Star Wars to go. I mean, they're not going to just hand it over to anybody. It's not like there's a coaching change or anything like that. This is a serious company. You need the right person in place. Just like, I mean, I think if you go back and look up some things about when Lucas hired her, I mean, it was a long process to have her come in, even though he's known her for pretty much her whole career. So, yeah, it's definitely a process. But what about you, Hannah? What's your feelings about Kathleen Kennedy so far?
I mean, I'm one of the people who haven't enjoyed as much that came out with Star Wars in the recent years under Kennedy. I'm somebody who feels like we've been seeing a lot of the same stories. There hasn't been anything incredibly new and original that we've seen.
Mm,
Mostly, we have had some, but mostly no. So part of me is like, maybe this will help, but the other part of me is concerned that maybe it'll make it more mainstream, and we don't necessarily want Star Wars to be mainstream.
mm.
So, jury's out for me. I think it's going to really depend on who is going to take her place.
Yeah, but it sounds like either way, you want somebody to take her place.
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think we need to shake it up a bit. We need to get more original ideas in here instead of kind of a lot of rinse and repeat formulas that we've seen
Hmm.
in recent shows and in recent movies. Even
Mm-hmm.
that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I know not everybody agrees, but I'm in the party that says that Star Wars, unfortunately, has hit a point where we're going through a bit of a story drought in the sense of there isn't anything that's too like there's not anything original. It's we've all seen it before, or it doesn't fit, and there's not a lot of good continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like that because they like to see characters with a new twist in a new situation. And, I'm just stating my own personal opinion. So I would like someone to take her place and see what they can do with it. But at the same time, I'm also cautious of that because um, I don't want Star Wars to turn into what happened to Marvel.
So, for example, you're saying like doing a series like Obi-Wan or Ahsoka, you're kind of just still centering these stories around characters that already existed.
Yeah, like
Is
we could still do those. That's fine.
mm-hmm.
But for me, like the reason why Ahsoka never really like at first I was kind of excited, but then the more I watched it, the more I'm like, wait, it didn't necessarily fit Ahsoka's character based on when we last saw her in Rebels. It and the journey she went through is kind of like finding yourself, and it's like I get there is no new story under the sun. Like, let's be honest, there isn't. I think we can probably all agree that the most recent quote unquote original idea that we've seen is Inception. I don't think we've seen an idea like Inception before. So that movie can arguably be an original story. So there is no such thing. But I'm using, like, for example, um, with, oh shoot, what is it called? Episode 7.
Force Awakens.
Thank you. The Force Awakens. That's a new hope just with a couple of twists in it.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
um and like okay, so with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, yes, they wrestle with one thing, but they wrestle with one thing that feels like it should have been resolved in a few episodes versus a whole entire series.
Mm.
That's just my opinion.
Hmm.
I know other people feel differently, and that's totally, totally fine. We're all, like, I know you absolutely love Obi-Wan. I'm like, I don't think we necessarily needed it. Um, like, I want to see new. I want to see where else this can go. Like, while I did not like The Last Jedi, I still appreciate the fact that they found new things to do with the Force. And then that carried on into The Rise of Skywalker. So, like, I want to see more new. I want us to go beyond this. And I know that now people are scared to go beyond this because of what happened to Acolyte. But
Right.
so, like, you could probably see why I'm like, yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like 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 Kamara J was saying, how much creative control did Kathleen Kennedy actually have?
Exactly. And that's why I'm like, so yeah, that's the ultimate question too. How much power does she have? So I'm like, is she the
I
one
mean,
that needs?
she's definitely green lighting everything. Now, she's not, as far as I can tell. I mean, I have to look back, but like she's not listed as producer on these things,
Right,
right? She might be executive producer or not even listed at all because she's head of the office. She's not head of these productions like she is normally with like Indiana Jones and
right.
E.T. and these movies that she's done throughout her career. That's what me and kind of Martin were hitting on a little bit was, if you're blaming her in a sense for you know a lot of what Lucasfilm has put out, you can definitely argue that the buck stops with the boss that says, yes, we're giving you money to make this series or this movie. But when it comes down to the actual product,
Right. It's not just her.
it's not.
It's
It's. I mean, technically, you should be looking at the producers,
you should be.
possibly the
Absolutely.
writers a little bit. If Mandalorian fell on its face, everybody was going to blame Filoni and Favreau. Period. Right? Because if it's successful, they're celebrating Filoni and Favreau, and not so much Kathleen Kennedy. So it's hard. It is hard because I think the role that she's doing right now, has been doing, is very different than being a producer on all these things, right? So
And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they're looking for someone now who does play a bit more of a role in creative versus somebody who's just running the entire office. I
well,
mean,
that
that
that's
could be.
that yeah, and that's the hard part because
Yeah.
you definitely need somebody that can run a company also. So and they really don't. That's why I hope you don't look to put like Filoni in the
No.
president's chair, right? Because that's not where he's good.
Right.
Maybe a Favreau. That's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe that's where you put a Favreau because he's both creative and a business guy, and I think him working with his chief creative officer Filoni, and which is pretty much what they're doing now on their own projects. It's like now you're doing it for every project, and that seems like more of a recipe for success. Now, could it be that they're looking for simply just a business person and somebody that understands the markets and understands the audiences? I mean, that's possible. Like very similar to like Bob Iger just running Disney, right? I mean, he understands the audience and what fans are looking for, and he has a great business mind on how to grow like the parks and the businesses and things like that. I mean, the success that they saw with that was incredible, so hence why they brought him back when it started kind of falling apart a little bit. But same with this, it's like that person, Kathleen is. I just, you can just tell she had to have been involved in so many other things.
Yeah.
There's no way she could be totally involved in the project. So I don't. So I mean, I think partial blame is definitely due for projects that didn't hit, but obviously success should be warranted for the ones that did hit, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
and you're never going to be. It's impossible. You're going to be 100% right on every project. But the fact is, for me, I agree with you. I don't like everything that has come out, but I will say that there's nothing that I've seen that I would look at it and say, "There's no way that's Star Wars."
That
Right?
is true. That is true.
Like, it has felt consistent as far as the way it looks, the way it
Yeah.
feels. Like, there isn't all of a sudden like some technology that's like, you're like, what? That's not, you know what I mean? Like, or I feel like everything is even, well, maybe the biker people in Book of Boba Fett might have been a little odd. No,
Uh,
no, I get it though. The
sure.
mod people, whatever, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I think that's the thing I'm most concerned about. And I was actually thinking about this on the way home when I was listening to, one thing I want to talk about too is I was listening to Reign of the Empire, the Mask of Fear, right? So just listening to that, I was thinking on the way home, I'm like, just the way like Mothma was talking and Bale, it's like they've consistently stayed true to those characters. I feel like hearing him in a book, watching her in Andor, hearing her in Rebels, it's like the consistency has been there with the way these characters, maybe not so much their what they do or the circumstances they have, but the way they talk and the way they interact and the way they speak about their positions and things like that. I think that's been relatively consistent. I applaud them for that. I think that's a lot to do with the story group, obviously keeping that consistent. But then Filoni now in that creative role, so.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting on that. Well, then let's get in right into, for one, the only real news coming up, obviously in a couple months, is Star Wars Celebration, and apparently the talk is, which this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but the big focuses apparently are obviously going to be on Andor and the Mandalorian and Grogu film that is going to be coming out.
No.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I still think that there's going to be a pretty decent size announcement on the animation side. They got to be close to announcing the next series or whatever they're doing.
Agreed.
So, because Star Wars Celebration has this kind of consistent theme where they have 3 days of big announcements or big reveals. So if one of them is going to be Mando and Grogu, one of them is going to be Andor, there's got to be one still that's going to be something new, right? So yeah, so I'm excited about that. It's going to be interesting to hopefully see something coming later this year, because right now there's nothing on the docket.
Please be Ventress. Please.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So anyway, we got 2 things from Andor. We have a trailer and we have this special look that they just released. Now the trailer, the big talking point, I'm curious on you, the big talking point has been kind of the soundtrack, this music that was on there. What did you think about that, and then the overall trailer itself when you watched it?
Well, I think music-wise, it's a good point that it's during the Super Bowl, so you're going to want something that'll match the tone of the Super Bowl. Totally get it. Personally, the music didn't really throw me that much. It
Yeah.
just kind of surprised me, but I was more along the lines of, oh, they're going for the music like in Skeleton Crew, and then they're going to drop kick us into the sun when the first episode airs. Like, it's supposed to, I think that to me, it was like, oh, this is providing a false sense of security of what it's going to be like, because we all know it's not going to be like that. I did also really like the fact that there wasn't any dialogue. It was just all visuals.
Right.
I
right.
would have liked at least one line.
Well, there wasn't one line.
Yeah,
At
there
least
was one
a
line,
couple
but like,
lines. Yeah.
sorry, I meant a little more sprinkled throughout,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
not spoil about what's to come, but just kind of like add to the visuals of what's to come. But I honestly think the second trailer that came out with the cast kind of giving their 2 cents about the production. I think that helped explain why the trailer was the way it was,
Mm.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the with Genevieve's line of, yeah, Genevieve, right?
Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With her line of this is the biggest we've done between the production and the costumes. It's like, oh, so in the trailer they really wanted to do this whole grandiose thing, which after reading Heir to the Empire, um, or sorry, Reign of the
Reign of the
Empire.
Empire. Yeah.
Come on, when you say Heir to the Empire, it's Reign of the Empire. Um, I feel like that also sets a tone because right now they're trying to kind of hush hush the power that the Empire has. And they're trying to, like, the Empire is doing this. They're trying to hush hush all the power they have. And they're trying to make it seem all grandiose and everything is hunky dory and everything's wonderful. And look at the great things the Emperor's doing. Basically, throwing a party while the poor are fighting over food and fighting over money. So it's a way to kind of show the contrast between the two and the division between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really powerful as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah. 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 I voiced my thoughts on the trailer. I think looking at this new thing, this special look, which amazing. It's kind of surprising that it came this quick,
Right.
from the trailer only dropped 10 days ago, and then all of a sudden this comes out. But I think they're going to be on at least I think the trend is that they're going to be on this major push of marketing for Andor
Oh yeah.
for the next, month and a half. Because we still got about 4 or 5 weeks till this actually drops. And I feel like this is good because I've always sensed or had this feeling that the last few years they just really have held back their marketing, on some of these shows. Like you really didn't. There was a show, and I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Obi-Wan. I think it might have been Obi-Wan. Like we didn't get anything until like a month before, and it was like all of a sudden they just started dropping something. And I just think you almost start taking your audience for granted that they're just going to tune in, but marketing is very important when it comes to trying to get somebody to come watch your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much content out there right now that you have a lot of options. But this first look, this special look thing this was pretty good. This was pretty incredible. It showed so much of the different years, that we're going to see here. We're going to see four different years basically. And well, what did you talk about that? What do you think about how they're doing like 3 episodes and then a time jump and then 3 episodes? Time jump.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think I need to see that play out because that feels like a lot of story in such a short amount of screen time. And I know because it is Disney Plus, a streaming service, episodes don't have to be dedicated to a certain length.
Right.
But still, like, I don't. So does. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about. I think I need. I'm trying not to think too hard about it, and I just want to experience the first 3 episodes and just see what that's like. Maybe it's supposed to be more like a movie per year, but even then, that feels like so much story to tell in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, but is it? That's the thing. Is I think what's interesting is I think it is 4 movies. I think we're going to get 4 movies, basically, is what we're going to get.
Gotcha.
Because if you think about it, I think each episode is probably going to be 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, right? So you're looking at probably an hour and 45-minute movie, right? Which I think I mentioned last week is I wish they would just do a movie and not like break it up into 3 episodes.
Right.
Because if you think about it, it's basically, it's basically 4 movies, and then you're going into a movie like Rogue One, right? So it's almost like we're gonna have like 5 movies in a row.
Dang.
And And I agree with you. I think that because I don't think there's going to be time jumping, within each each movie, right? It's going to be just focused on. I mean, it's literally a Star Wars movie where it's focused on one event or what happens in that time period. I don't know how they determined it, but what I think they did was these are the 4 major significant events that shaped the rebellion.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not necessarily Andor. I mean, obviously Andor's a part of it. But I really think that these are going to be these are the 4 things that drove the rebellion to into Rogue One and obviously let them win against the Empire eventually, right?
Right.
So, and I think it's obviously the Andor story and then the Mon Mothma story of how it came to be, which is interesting because I want to get into, well, I might as well do it now. I was going to do it later, but that kind of stretches into what I thought was interesting that I kind of read about and then I did some research on. But when you watch the trailer in this video, there's that scene. I don't know if you saw that scene where it's basically like a protest going on, and
yes,
there's like explosions and stormtroopers like shooting everybody, and then just a bunch of bodies. Well, apparently that's being referred to as the Gorman massacre.
Oh.
And what's really cool about this, not cool that it's a massacre, but what's really neat about the story connect here is that if you go all the way back to Rebels, when season 3, I think it was called Secret Cargo, the one when Mon Mothma shows up. And basically that's when they declared the alliance to restore the Republic, right? That's when the actual Rebel Alliance was formed. The very beginning of that episode, she comes out on the hologram out to like the galaxy and basically declares that the Emperor is responsible for the massacre of Gorman people. And so she's describing this event that I think we're going to see in Andor. Which ultimately I think is, again, what sparks the rebellion fully, that brings all these rebel cells together, right? Because there's all these rebel cells all over the place and they're not organized. So that right there, I think, is pretty cool that they're going to tie this stuff in.
That's awesome. I wonder if we'll also see that speech.
I bet you we do.
Yep. And so is it going to be verbatim? Are they going to change it a bit? Like, that'll be very interesting to see.
Yes. And apparently that's like the time when, because she speaks up, it's during the Senate. She speaks up during the Senate. So at that point, she fears for her life, and that's when she kind of goes into hiding, basically.
Right.
And the Empire's trying to hunt her down all the way up through Return of the Jedi. Like, they still can't get to her.
Yep.
And that's why Mon Mothma has always intrigued me. She's always been one of my, I never really could say my favorite character because I really didn't know anything about her.
Yeah.
She was just this one figurehead that shows up at the end of Return of the Jedi, and you're like, I really truly remember watching like the original trilogy for the first few times and being like, who is this woman? Like she just shows up and just starts commanding, and you're like, who is this? So
when I was little and I first saw that, I'm like, why isn't that Leia? Like, what's going on here?
Correct.
Who is she?
I mean, I think everybody in their right mind would think that Leia is the leader of the rebellion.
Yeah.
But no, Mon Mothma is. And it's like, well, why is she? And so now we're finally, after 40 years, getting the story of Mon Mothma. And I'm all in because I think Genevieve O'Reilly is playing this character like perfectly.
Yes.
And, she played her in episode 3 that got cut, but then voiced her in Rebels, and then now is playing her in Andor, and she popped up in what was it, Ahsoka? Yeah, it was Ahsoka, right?
Ahsoka.
Yeah. So no, I'm all. I think this thing is. I think we're going to see some pretty crazy scenes, and I think it's going to be a lot of just battles, a lot of battles.
A lot of
So,
fighting.
so what do you? I was thinking, like, what do you think? Because here's the thing. Here's the truth. It's like kind of what Kimura was saying is that Andor season 1 was critically acclaimed, but it didn't get a lot of views.
Right.
I mean, why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
I think because a lot of people were like me in the beginning, who was like, why are we doing a show about this one guy? Like, why are we doing a show about a guy about Andor, who we saw in Rogue One? Why do we have to care about the story? But I think the thing is that, and I wonder if they didn't they didn't market it correctly, where it's like, it's not just Andor, it's following the beginning of the formation of the rebellion. And by formation, I mean all cells coming together
Yeah.
versus them being separate. Because as you read in Reign of the Empire, cells began right away. Like within months, cells already were created to rebel against the Empire. So I think if they did a different marketing strategy, or if they were a little more clear with what Andor season 1 was going to be, instead of just following Andor throughout the formation of the rebellion, I think it would have gotten more viewership. So that's why I think the viewership was low, because as far as we knew, it was about this guy who we knew barely anything about, and frankly, I didn't care much for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that when it was announced, it was a little, it was kind of confusing a little bit, why? Because we started off with these, original characters, Mandalorian and Grogu, and we were following that story, and then, and then I think something familiar came back, because it came back with the Clone Wars, season 7. And then all of a sudden you're having, I can't remember the order fully, but I think we had 2 seasons of Mando before we got to Andor. I mean, I think we even had Boba Fett before we got to Andor.
Time is a soup. I can't remember what.
Yeah, I can't remember fully, but I do remember it was announced really early that we were getting this. And, I like the idea, Tony Gilroy was attached again, who was part of Rogue One, and I really liked Rogue One. I know you didn't really totally like Rogue One, but I liked Rogue One a lot. I think I feel like I would have been more interested, or I'm surprised they didn't do like a Jyn Erso storyline, but Andor was interesting because, if he was in the fight since he was 6 years old, like he said, it was interesting to know how he got into it and all that stuff. But it's like all these things, we already know how it ends, so it's hard to kind of get somebody excited to see where it goes, because you kind of know where it goes, right? So,
right.
But I'm telling you, and I think you agree, like season 1 was so well done.
It was so good.
And it has to do with, and interesting in that special look. I'm glad they say it in there, because he says it. Diego Luna says it. He says, everybody pays so much attention to everything, the characters, the costumes, the sets. It's like everybody is so into it, and you can clearly tell, I think, when shows have everybody into it like that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, you absolutely can tell. And in watching that first trailer before we even got that second one, you're like, yeah, there was some love and passion in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I do wonder if Bail Organa, I don't think we've seen him yet. I don't think
I don't remember seeing him. If we don't see him in at least one episode, I will be shocked.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Speaking of Reign of the Empire, Since you're done with it,
Yes.
what's your, what's your spoiler-free kind of thoughts on it?
Talk about a whiplash of politics and action is, I think, the best way to describe it. Literally, as soon as Emperor Palpatine declares himself emperor, it
Yes.
goes from 0 to 120 in less than 3 seconds. Like, immediately, people are in action.
Yeah.
Immediately, we see people. And it's so interesting to hear
But
all
more on
the.
the political action, right?
Well, we get both. We get political because Saw Gerrera's in this.
Saw Gerrera, yes.
Not
Yeah.
a spoiler because we get him fairly early on in the book.
No,
So
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Paul Gerrera is in
Well,
this.
everybody should know they touted it's Saul, Bale, and Mon
Yeah,
Mothma, basically.
and we follow. But I think what really got me interested is we understand because we've seen these characters later after the rebellion has gone on for a while, and we see where their morals are, we see where their lines are. But in this book, those lines are tested because they're
Mm,
constantly thinking, "What is for the greater good? What am I willing to compromise with regards to my own morals and what I think is right for the right and the betterment of the wrong that's happening right now?"
interesting. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And so there were moments where I like actually audibly gasped on the plane because I was like, I can't believe she just did that. Or
Oh
I can't
man.
believe he just did that.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a lot of that too. And I think that's what makes this book so interesting, besides it just being a, an
Political
action
thriller or something.
political. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what makes it interesting is you don't know what decisions they're going to make
Mm,
because they're constantly questioning, like, I would normally do this, but do I break that?
right.
And do I feel guilty for a bit, but knowing I just did the universe better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of philosophy of do the ends justify the means going on.
Right. Yeah, and I'm just starting into it. I'm about 7, 8 chapters in right now, and I feel what you're saying. I think that's right, and I think that you know, just again, it's something that's from the front of the book. That's not a spoiler, but it feels like this thing. What's great about it too is that it ties into which I wish they would put these deleted scenes back into episode 3, the scenes where the senators are secretly meeting about the delegation of 2,000,
Yeah.
the 2,000 senators that are basically petitioning that the chancellor or the emperor shouldn't have this unlimited power. And they're the ones that immediately get targeted after the fall of the republic, right? So that's kind of how, safe to say, right, that's kind of how this kicks off. Is they're the ones being looked at by the empire. Are they loyal, or are they gonna be a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think a lot of them are start to question whether or not they want to be a problem or not. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, going into into the book. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It's
so good, bad. What
I
were
I
you?
loved it. I
You
thought
loved
it
it?
was
Okay.
great. It might be in my top 5.
Oh, interesting. I think it's probably gonna end up there in my list. I think it'll be in the top 5.
It's a
I already feel
long
like I'm gonna
read.
like it.
Yeah, it's a long read, but whoa.
Yeah, I think it's 15, 16 hours, right?
It's
On the
16, 17
16.
hours.
Yeah, so I got a long way to go, but I'll get there.
That's why I had plane flights and a very long layover.
Well, I've got a plane flight next week, so
Hey!
I might get it. But I also like watching movies that I don't normally catch up on when I get
Oh
on
yeah,
flights like
that's
that.
true.
So
We didn't have that on the flight. Our flight was very vanilla in the, like, don't
oh
get me wrong, I love the flavor vanilla. I think that phrase is wrong when people are like, "Well, it's so vanilla." It's like, "Well, vanilla's a good flavor, so pick another word."
yeah, but it is plain. I mean, that's
But
all that means,
it's
right?
not there is if you get a great vanilla ice cream, it is a great complex flavor in there. But yes, it was
Well,
very plain. That's a better
yeah.
word to use. It's
Okay.
very, no pun intended. It was very plain.
Yes, very plain. Okay, like I said, Reign of the Empire is out there. The first book, it's a trilogy. The first book called The Mask of Fear, that is out there right now. We will do a Beyond the Saga, truly decent breakdown review of it as soon as I get through it, which I am going to get through it before this Andor show kicks off.
Yeah,
And
I was curious to know if we might get, like in future books, obviously not with this one, but in future books, if we'll get snippets of that in Andor. That would be
right,
interesting.
right. And then in the publication realm too, still the Acolyte's got a book coming out called Wayseeker on May 6th. The High Republic comes to an end June 17th with Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule. There's a Bad Batch novel called Sanctuary coming out August 5th. And then new comics, Jedi Knights #1 just dropped this past week. So I am going to read that, and I'll do a little review for our patrons on that. And then a Legacy of Vader is still continuing on this month, as well as The Rise of Skywalker. The comic adaptation is coming out now. So those issues, go check those out. So, all right, there you go. A little Andor talk. We got more to talk about as the weeks lead up to the April 22nd premiere, where first 3 episodes are going to drop. Which is about the same time as Star Wars Celebration. So there's going to be a lot to go over at that point, hopefully. Hopefully there's a lot of reveals. Obviously we got 3 episodes. We'll have 3 episodes to talk about each week. I don't know how we're going to do it on The Mandalore, because I don't think we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be a 10-hour show. Sorry,
not
man.
gonna be-
You're going to be calling out sick every Monday morning because you...
Not going to be a 10-hour show. No way. We're debating on how we're going to break that down, but we'll see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah, we'll see how long the episodes are, and it might just be one big movie that we just break down. I don't know yet. So
None of us know.
but come back here to Inside the Force. Me and Hannah will break down in around an hour, and
Yeah.
we're not gonna do more than that. And
My old bones can't take it.
yeah, no kidding. And of course, again, thanks to our patrons. And if you're interested in supporting the show that way, patreon.com/Inside the Force. Keep coming back here on YouTube, where we got our council sessions and our Beyond the Sagas. We got episodes in the bank that are going to be coming out here over the next few weeks, so go check those out. Thanks, Hannah, as always.
Thank you, Dave, as always.
Yeah, love talking about this. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.